Game over, man. Game over. Johnny.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
So serious.
Roll out.
I am Iron Man.
This is a tasty burger.
Welcome to the In Session Film Podcast.
Welcome back to the In Session Film Podcast. I am your host, Ryan McQuaid.
And I'm Jay Ledbetter.
And we're back for another edition of our movie series review, Jay. Back in the Wong Kar-wai, driving this car down the long and winding road to this great filmmaker that we've talked 3 films already about. Had a really great journey on the Chungking Express. This time we're going Ashes of Time, my friend. Ashes of Time.
Let's hope this isn't a long turn down a windy road.
I knew you were going to make that. I knew you were going to make the joke. I knew you were just going to do it, and that's why I avoided it, but it is what it is. Jay, how you been? How you been, buddy?
I've been great. Just watching some Wong Kar-wai films, still thinking about Shazam! Fury of the Gods.
Not thinking about Wick?
Just to timestamp this episode if anyone listens to it down the road. But it's good, cinema. You watch Shazam and then you watch some Wong and your faith in cinema is restored a little bit.
You watch John Wick.
You watch John Wick.
Then you're like,
all that
you know what
stuff.
I need? A little Dungeons and Dragons. You know what I'm saying? Just so like
we are carbon dating this episode.
We are literally living in a weird time. And then next week it's what is it? Next week it's Super Mario and Air in the same week.
Yeah. Let's just run through the entire release schedule for April 2023.
Yeah. Let's do it. You want to run it down?
Well, Brian, it seems to me like you're delaying talking about the film Ashes of Time.
Yeah. Maybe I am. Maybe I am just a little bit. You know what I mean? Maybe I'm just like, what? We'll get to this movie eventually. Isn't like Renfield in this month too? See, I'd see it. See what I'm doing here? I know what I'm doing. What else is out this month?
Oh my God! Enough.
I Was Afraid is out this month.
This is a J level tangent.
Are you there, God? It's me, Margaret.
Oh,
out the end of the month. The Covenant. Do you know what The Covenant is?
No.
The Covenant is the second film from Guy Ritchie, starring Jake.
Oh, right, the army one. Yeah.
Yeah, and then your most anticipated film of the year comes out this month too.
Is that the Russell Crowe Exorcist one?
No, that was your number 2. Your number 1 is The Flash.
Oh, I cannot wait to enter the Speed Force, baby.
Speed Force, baby. God, what a wild month of movies. Just put that in a crock pot. Interesting kind of.
A cosmic gumbo.
Like, you know what? I want that on like some sort of calendar for this month. A cosmic gumbo.
It's a real cosmic gumbo of month.
It's a real cosmic gumbo. And then somewhere in there is How to Blow Up a Pipeline. Anyway, I'm not going to keep doing that. That's just a bad bit on my part. And I apologize to all the listeners out there and to JD and to everybody. Yes, we are here to talk about Ashes of Time. I have been stalling it long enough. And this movie, of course, is directed by Wong Kar-wai. And it stars all of his regulars. Because at this time, he was just, Leslie Chung, Tony Leung, Maggie Chung, Bridget Lin, Jackie Chung. I mean,
two Tony Leungs in this one, which is tough.
Yeah, you get a couple, a little bang for your buck. You know what I mean? It's about a broken-hearted hitman who moves to the desert where he finds skilled swordsmen to carry out his contract killings. That sounds way more exciting, Jay, than maybe this movie.
It's also a very, very simple way to describe what goes on in this movie.
I would say that it's very loose description from IMDb about what this movie is a little bit. That makes it sound like it's like a John Wick movie, to be honest. It makes it sound like it's like action a minute. And there is action sequences in there. But we talked about this movie a little bit last week. We mentioned, Jay, that this was a disaster, a little bit of a disaster for Wong Kar-wai. Behind the scenes, making this film, he lost a lot of faith in himself, lost a lot of faith in filmmaking and the process and everything. And then that's Through that, he makes Chungking Express, which is
Yeah.
a great film. We talked about it last week. But we jumped a little bit ahead in time to talk about that film, but we really should have probably talked about this one first. But
No, this film
whatever.
was released after, even if it was made before.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I was just talking about in the making of chronologically. Maybe we
Yeah.
should have done that one. But anyway, that's beside the point. This movie came out, was what it was. This movie is very hard to find. You cannot find it
Yeah.
pretty much anywhere. You have to go to
Well, I
the
watched it on
darkest webs.
iTunes, to be fair.
Is it?
It's on iTunes. The director's cut is on iTunes.
Director's cut is on iTunes. That's what it's like 93 minutes. The
Mhm.
original cut, Jay had to go to like the dark web in order to find that and send it to me so I can watch
Is
it.
that the one that you watched?
Yes.
I only was able to watch the director's cut, so
Okay. So
this will be
This
interesting.
will be interesting. But it's only a 7-minute difference. So it's pretty much still the same film, I would assume. But we'll probably have different experiences talking about it today. So Jay, what are your thoughts on Ashes of Time?
Well, the fortunate part about the fact that we watched, or at least this film specifically, when you watch two different cuts, the film is so hard to follow that I will probably say something that didn't happen in your cut, and you'll just be like, yeah, definitely, I totally remember that, even if it wasn't actually in the film. It is, this film, obviously, maybe Wong Kar-wai's least remembered film. This is the one, that isn't in the one of two, I think, that are not in the Criterion box set that came out. This is a film that has not been well maintained.
Sorry, it's one of three. None of the box
Three.
set.
So it's which one of
This?
the three?
My Blueberry Nights and the Grandmaster.
Oh, and Grandmaster. I forgot about My Blueberry Nights.
Sorry. Most people
Okay.
have, but yet we're talking about that in a couple
I
weeks.
apologize to all of our listeners. out
I'm
there.
sorry, Nora Jones. I know you listen to all these reviews and everything. You really just let her down.
Apologies to Nora. So this film, not very well remembered and not very well maintained. They lost the original print of the film and they had to recut it into this director's cut, which is now the only version of the film that you can legally see or see through traditional means in the Western Hemisphere. So it's just a film that has a weird reputation, a weird history. Like you said, Ryan, Wong sort of, I don't know, disowned might not be the right word for what he has done with this film, but he certainly doesn't have...
It's not a disownment because it's not like a Fincher situation where he's just like, I don't want to.
It kind of came and went, and he moved on. Except for when he did this director's cut, which he did do, and it doesn't. I mean, so it is a very good-looking movie, but the copy of the print is not very good-looking. If that makes any sense at all, You're not seeing a sterling HD copy of this film. What you're watching, even on iTunes, looks more like a VHS copy than what you're normally used to seeing on your iTunes or your Amazons or however you end up watching this movie. You might as well be watching it on YouTube, really, is kind of what the feeling you get when you watch this one. And all that said, as baffling as this movie can be, I found it fascinating, and I had a good time watching it. First and foremost, because movie's got great vibes, Ryan. I mean, the vibes are immaculate. The vibes are great. I could be a big vibes guy.
It's very, I guess okay, we'll talk about it. Yeah.
I think just being in this movie is a very interesting sensation.
It's an interesting world that he's building here. I will say that.
And it is, it's a big world. This is a prequel to a very famous Asian novel that I am completely unfamiliar with.
Wait,
My
you didn't read the
impression of-
novel before we did
believe
this
it or
review?
not. I know that's
Come on.
that's very unlike
You're
me.
really slacking now.
I
You
know.
become a dad,
I know.
and then your
Fatherhood has changed me.
Yeah, your preparation for the show has gone completely downhill. I'm so disappointed in you
Yeah.
for not reading this novel that I had no idea existed. Even after watching this movie, I had to look it up. Yeah.
But
Shame on
my
you.
impression of what this movie is they're kind of doing the Maleficent treatment, where they're trying to humanize the main villain of that story and show you kind of his origins and why he became
Wong
the way that
Kar-wai
he
with
did, and
Maleficent?
much. What's that?
Wong Kar-wai Maleficent film.
See,
See,
he would have made a better Mistress of Evil than whoever directed Mistress of Evil. I couldn't tell you who that was, but
I'm gonna look that up while you're talking. Keep
please,
going.
please do.
I'm
But
looking it up.
it is derived from this novel, but it has the Wong Kar-wai trademarks. It is what's more Wong Kar-wai than making a villain's origin story, spurned love, you know? And that is what this film is about. It's about this lonely assassin longing to regain the love of his life, who ended up marrying his brother. All the while, this woman can't forget him either, played by Maggie Cheung, who is just Wong Kar-wai's ideal woman, I guess. She is extraordinarily beautiful. I understand it. And you understand why this guy would go about his entire life thinking about Maggie Cheung in that way. But it's really kind of an anthology movie with 3 or 4 distinct stories that create this kind of mosaic, this quilt of an origin for this character. And some of the stories are better than others. I think the best story is the Tony Leung that we're more familiar with, where he plays a blind warrior.
Yeah.
Or a warrior who at least is going blind anyway. And it has this really kind of Aesop's fable energy to it, where every story has this big dramatic irony at the end. That's the hook that gives you kind of the quote unquote meaning of that section of the film. What I find maybe most fascinating about it is it has the energy of a really epic kung fu film. And there are like 2 moments of that kind of movie. It is very rarely played that way. It feels like a Wong Kar-wai movie, even if you want it to feel like something different. I appreciate his commitment to his vision. There's this one particular scene where one of the female characters sees her reflection in the water and starts fighting her own reflection. And at that point, you see these big, grandiose water, there's explosions in the water and there's huge, epic images going on. And I was like, oh, okay, we're ramping up. And then, no, it goes back to being a Wong Kar-wai movie, which I think at times gives sort of an imbalance. And there's a little bit of a promise of one thing and we go back to another. I kind of wish it had stuck even more to the Wong Kar-wai vision, even in this director's cut, which you would think would be even more committed to that worldview and that tone. But I did like this movie. I liked it more than I thought I was going to. I think the pieces are really great and they lead to a whole, which is just this force field of longing and lost love that I think really ties the whole film together. So I had a good time with this one. I don't think we're going to be spending over an hour talking about it like we are with some of the other films, but I think there's a lot to appreciate here. I really do.
To clean up a little bit on there, Joachim Roning was the director of Maleficent.
Cool. Can you
Mistress of Evil.
run down his filmography for me?
Yes. So he's most known for directing Kon-Tiki. Remember Kon-Tiki?
Oh, yes, of course.
And so and then he did a couple episodes of that canceled show on Netflix, Marco Polo. Remember when they tried to do that?
Oh man, that was like the most expensive show ever when it came out. I remember
he did the first 2 episodes of that, and boy howdy did
he was
that
the
thing
mastermind of Marco Polo.
He was the directorial.
He was the architect of Marco Polo.
Because when like a television series, the first 2, like when Fincher did like House of Cards, he kind of set the example.
This is what the show
is the aesthetic of what we
can have other people come in and make their mark, but broadly, this is the show.
Yeah, this is how it's going to look, and a lot of shows can really thrive on that and really fall flat on their face. And definitely
And while
miss.
he said Marco Polo, the rest of the world said Marco. Oh no.
Yes, correct, Jay. Good Lord. And then that, of course, led them to direct Pirates of the Caribbean: Dead Men Tell No Tales. That's with the one with Javier
Ooh,
Bardem.
yikes.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yikes.
So that's
And
when he
then
got
they-
his foot in the Disney door.
That's when he got in the Disney door. And then the next film was 2019's Maleficent: Mistress of Evil. Just an insanely stupid movie. Like an unnecessary movie to begin with.
A movie that's kind of about immigration.
Yeah.
It's a
That
crazy
movie's
movie.
stupid. That movie's dumb. And now he's got a movie coming out later this year. Young Woman in the Sea. So he's going back to the sea. He's trying to be James Cameron. That's what it looks like. a little bit
Young
here.
Woman in the Sea.
It's about
Eat
the
your
first
heart
woman,
out, Ernest Hemingway.
the first woman to ever swim across the English Channel, and the lead is Daisy Ridley.
Wow.
And
What do you
he's
think of
also-
Ashes of Time, Ryan?
He's also going to direct the third Tron movie in the franchise. You know what I'm talking about? He's taking
Yeah.
over for Krasinski. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
Joachim Roning. I've been on massive tangents today. I didn't like this movie at all, Jay. I really
All
didn't
right.
like it. I was very bored by it, and it's really shocking because it was really kind of from the opening, like the opening, at least from my perspective. Now, 7 minutes. I don't know about you. 7 minutes can change a lot of things. You can take out a lot of things in 7 minutes of a movie, right? You can make a thing probably extremely tighter, and you can make it feel better.
Oh, you're saying between the two cuts.
Yeah, because you got 7 less minutes.
I got
than
the shorter guy.
You got the short guy. I got the tall boy. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And there are sequences here that could definitely be cut. There's sequences in the original cut. See, I thought you were going to do original cut because you sent me the damn link, so I thought you were going to do that.
Yeah.
And
I got
on
that
me.
link after I'd already watched it.
Oh, okay. And you just never popped that other bad boy back.
Nah,
in.
never popped the other one on.
Yeah, good job. I think that this movie, from like the opening, it's confusing as to what it wants to be, and it's kind of
It's
the sensibility.
confusing in general.
It's a very confusing film. I think it's
It's a little confounding.
a little confounding. You know what this movie kind of weirdly reminded me of? Do you remember like I think it's 2003, 2004 film Hero starring Jet Li?
Yeah,
that
of
movie?
course. Mm-hmm.
Movie's great. That
Mhm.
movie, when you're young, is confusing. But then when you watch it later, you're like, oh, this movie rules. This movie's really good. And I was feeling like that vibes here. Maybe over time, if I come back, or maybe if I watch the cut down director's version, maybe I'll get the better film. But I got to tell you here, this movie, it's like 5 acts. It's very much like in Wong's sort of.
Yeah, it's
I can
it's
understand
an anthology
why-
movie.
I can understand why Chungking Express also comes out of the ashes, if it were, from
Yeah.
this movie, because of the fact that, like, you know, we get those sort of two stories that kind of connect together in that film, loosely connect together in that film, but there's a lot more focus on one of those stories than there is another, right?
Chungking Express really does feel like the movie he wanted to make. Well, you understand where his desire to make that specific movie comes from when you watch this one.
Yeah,
It really
because
is
when you-
thematic. They are thematically tied.
Yeah, they are, because here is a sort of what is those films called? Like Buster Scruggs, like when you're trying to make like an anthology film. This is an anthology film.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I don't think that any of them really work for me, honestly.
Any
Like-
of them. Interesting. I don't
I
like
was-
the yin yang.
I was like, oh, it's some of them.
That one
start off
is
so strong.
Utterly confusing when
It
you have
really
these,
is. It really is. I
these
was
two
sitting there, I'm like,
characters who, yeah, there's a man who comes out who is a man who the whole time you're like, So are they just like putting a woman there and it's just like a man? And I mean, that's interesting. I don't really understand it. And then it's
no
like,
rhyme or
oh no,
reason
there's
to it.
actually that's my sister who is also the same actress. And that one was weird. I agree. It didn't totally work for me.
It doesn't work because it's just like, oh, you're trying to put all these. Almost okay. You know what this movie at times felt like? You know when you watch Lord of the Rings, right?
Which I do all the time.
Which you do all the time. But even you can relate to this, even though you don't watch those movies all the time. You've seen Lord of the Rings, right? Great movies. You can watch them all the time. You know enough of the mythology in that. You don't ever need anything else, right? And it's a solidified story there. Boom, bing, bang. Jay knows it. Then they released The Hobbits. And everything in The Hobbit pretty much is like really winking at the camera. Like just full on 100, what is it, like 48 frames or whatever, the 200 whatever frames or whatever that crazy frame rate is.
I think that one was 48.
The 48 frames where it's literally in your face, all the different like, hey, this is Gandalf. Hey, this is the Shire. Hey,
60.
this is all this.
I think it was
And so,
60.
but you have all these like winks, but take out all the other mythology that you knew before. This is, of course, a prequel to something none of us know. So therefore,
Well,
any of the payoffs,
it was not
or
made
buildups-
for American audiences, to be
exactly.
fair.
So I'm watching this going, I don't even think he knows.
See, I don't think you need that background. You can just consider it
you need a little bit.
a villain origin story. That's all it is.
But the thing about it is like you're setting this stuff up, but it's intended, yes, for an audience that is not us, Jay, which is fine. But even if I was that audience member, I'd be like, this is kind of lazy.
Nah, but
It's a little lazy.
think about the Maleficent movie, which is the closest American correlation I can think of to this film.
I can't believe we've talked about Maleficent.
What do we know about Maleficent before the Angelina Jolie movie? Bad, evil person. That's it. That's all Maleficent has been up to that point, right?
Yeah,
so
and then
that's
that
all
was
you need.
Ooh, what if good person?
You need to know where they end up, which is
What if
bad.
good person? Yeah. Yeah, and those movies are like, what if you understood her a little bit more?
Now, what I would say if I was you at this point is, yes, but Maleficent is not a good movie, which is a fair.
Exactly.
If I want to argue against myself, that is fair.
It's not a good movie, Jay. They're not good movies.
I'm
They
really.
just made
I'm twisting myself into a pretzel
I know.
trying to justify my takes on this
Thank you
one.
for setting that up on a T-ball for me to knock out of the damn
Not only did I
park.
set it up, I hit it for you.
I didn't even run the bases. I just literally sat in a lawn chair while you took my home run. And
Yes.
thank you very much. No, I mean, like,
It's
listen,
a yin. I'm very much the yin and yang. I'm fighting with myself.
There you go. There it is. Okay. I will admit that this movie feels like it's stuck between two places. It feels like it wants to be a Wong Kar-wai drama that we've seen many times before that are very, very good. But this is the problem that we have with this first film. It's like, but we gave that one enough of a pass because there's enough flourishes there. It's a first-time film. There's all these different things. It's a crime movie. It's pretty good. Like, there's enough crime mixed with the romance and the all the intrigue enough for you to get over the hump. Is that right? Here, on the other hand, you got a movie that is a martial arts film. At the core of it, that's what this movie is. And it's got, like you said, two sequences, and they're fine. There's nothing actually really spectacular about
I
those.
like the Tony Leung blind man sequence a lot.
I think
actually.
that again, I think it's
It's
fine.
staged very interestingly, non-traditionally.
Yeah, they're not traditional.
It's
but
not
they're-
Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, where you're
No,
like,
no, 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 no,
whoa, this is so awesome.
It doesn't
It's
feel
kind
like,
of expressionistic in its.
see, here's the thing is that I didn't feel that he elevated those scenes. I felt
Well, it depends
that,
on what you're looking for. If you're looking
I'm looking for,
a
like, I'm looking for
subtle
a guy.
interpretation of those things, again, a kind of an expressionistic
Yeah.
interpretation of that. If you're looking for a John Wick incredible choreography,
No. I'm not looking for like modern filmmaking techniques. I'm looking for, at the time, you're going to make your samurai film, have it stand out in your way. And just for me, I don't think it did. I don't think it did. I don't think that there's enough of his trademarks in those sequences. And also, I think that that's the case because in an hour and 40-minute film, he only does it twice. And those are the afterthoughts. And in a movie like this, it's like, no, those kind of should be like, it should be a little bit more
I think it ends up
half
being
and
3
half.
times.
This is like this, you know, when you make a movie like this, if you want to do your version of this or whatnot, you kind of like, it's like when you make a half and half iced tea, you know, when you make it unsweet and sweet. It doesn't need to be full sweet, and it doesn't need to like have no sugar at all. It needs to have a balance. You know what I'm trying to say?
Mm-hmm.
And this movie, I don't think has that balance nearly enough, because a lot of it is spent with a lot of characters in like 5 different sections. Some of them is like, okay, those are interesting ideas. I wish those were fleshed out longer. And then other times it's like, what are we doing here with these characters? So it's a lot to throw at. I can understand why this was a hectic project, because it's a lot to take in.
It's
but
big.
It's big. The
A
world
lot of
building
locations.
itself, like the
Very-
locations, very big.
You mentioned samurai. Kurosawa is dripping over every inch of this movie.
Yeah, this is dripping with those influences. But
And
I think at this
he
point,
said as much in some of the interviews I read.
But Jay, I think at this point in his career, he's made 3 films, right? No, 2 films. And
yeah, when he's making this, he's made 2.
And maybe it's the studio pressure. Maybe it's the fact that, you know, he has to make something more commercial because his last film flopped. But I can understand that he's sort of in a no-win situation. He's kind of lost making this movie. It feels like I want to make this one thing, but they want me to make this. I got to include these things. I really don't want to. It feels like an artist at an existential crisis. And then you see Chungking Expression, you go, "Oh, there's the guy. There he is."
The thought that I had after this film was, why did you think you were the right person to make this movie? was kind of obviously they were going to push back on this. This was an expensive movie. It's supposed to be a pretty standard genre film, and it just isn't. And he knew that he was going to throw his own sensibilities at this, so he had to know that these conflicts were coming when editing started, and that was really where everything came to a head, was when he was editing this movie. Obviously, he's made his own cut now, so he had issues with how they ended up editing the film. I do need to one day watch that original cut just to see the differences. I do like it to check it out. I do like it enough to check it out again. But it's a fascinating object, if nothing else, because it is so different than anything he's done, certainly until much later in his career with something like The Grandmaster, which we'll talk about. But it's
The Grandmaster, that's a movie we have to find the original cut, because that thing barely exists.
Yeah, that's another one. I don't know what the deal with that is. You would think when did that movie come out? Like 2010 or 2012 or something?
It's like 2012, 2013. Yeah, somewhere around there.
You would think he would have
Yeah.
the cachet to put it out into the world. I don't know.
That thing. I wonder, maybe it was the country that did it, or
It's probably Harvey Weinstein.
I'm gonna look this up. But you know, I wouldn't put it. I mean, I wouldn't put it past that. But yeah, I just remember that movie. Like, if you want, like, I think it was screening in theaters, the original cut, and then but when it came to actual like streaming and all that other stuff, you couldn't see it, or you had to go to festivals in order to see the full cut or something like that. The Grandmaster. I don't know. I don't know why. Yeah, I agree with you, Jay. I don't know why it's not the case. No, I'm looking at producers. Megan Ellison. That looks like Annapurna. Might be an Annapurna thing.
Oh, Megan Ellison produced The Grandmaster?
She executive produced
one of the producers on it?
Yeah, she's at least one of them. Yeah.
Man, remember when she was just cranking out auteur movies?
Remember when, she financed what? Didn't she was it
financed The Master?
Phantom Thread? Phantom Thread?
I know The Master.
maybe. No, maybe Inherent Vice.
I don't know.
Vice.
She was, for a minute, she was one of the good Nepo babies.
Yeah, her and Jamie Lee Curtis, right?
But that was their
They're
production plan was a little unsustainable. She was throwing huge money at movies that when you heard of, you're like, oh yeah, that'll make like 15 million.
Yeah, no, she's been.
And I respect her for it. I think they did the Sisters Brothers.
She did, yeah. In 2018, they did the Sisters Brothers. Yeah, Phantom Thread. Correct. I was correct on that. Ballad of Buster Scruggs. Beale Street and Vice, all in the same year. Booksmart, and then right after Booksmart's when it started going.
Yeah, they were like maybe
Hustlers
maybe
and
we
Where'd You
can't
Go,
do this
Bernadette, Bombshell. Dick Johnson is dead.
She has. They've gone.
She Said
Annapurna has
last
gone a little more mainstream.
Yeah, they did. She Said last year. Pam and Tommy. So she's
Tommy.
She's working. She's working. Anyway, this movie.
I didn't realize they were still doing all that.
I think they got bought. Didn't they get bought out or something like
Something like
somebody?
that. It might be more of a just name.
She might have moved to
You get
like
your name in
search
the credits thing now.
or something like that.
Before she was really driving the creative
But yeah, no,
choices
she
for-
was driving, and she was
She was
driving a lot of
greenlighting stuff.
auteurs. Yeah,
Yeah.
a lot of auteurs, and especially to greenlight a Wong Kar-wai movie. I mean,
It truly was like a Veruca Salt situation. It was like, Daddy, I want to make a Paul Thomas Anderson movie.
and I bet Paul Thomas Anderson's like, I'll take all that money. Yeah, and she's like, well, Veruca, he doesn't make a lot of money at the box office.
I want it, and I want it now, Daddy.
I want the Phantom Threads. I want the Inherent Vice.
I want to give Paul Thomas Anderson $80 million to make a movie, Daddy.
Oh my God. Yeah. And then MGM was like, yeah, we'll do Licorice Pizza instead, kid. We've really gone on tangents for this episode. No. Do you have thoughts? Any more thoughts on this? I know we're not closing this out just yet, but we should here soon. But
No, let's close it. Let's close the book. I mean, this is my again.
I mean,
like
honestly,
this movie.
I will say this about this review is that they're aesthetically, the world building and everything. Like, this is a movie, Jay. When I watched it, I was like, on page, this has got to make a lot more sense, because in the you know how sometimes you watch a film and you're like, man, they had this from the get go, like they knew what they were doing.
Well, it's
Sometimes it
so
looks like they're gonna make a
split
movie.
up.
Yeah,
right?
it's so
and
like,
I
we're gonna
think it
do-
does add up, and I don't think
Yeah.
you do as much, but it has
No.
that. It has this structure. It's not even really like Buster Scruggs, because that's so.
No, that's
those
so
are just
loose.
completely disparate stories. This is this is
Yeah.
more like 3,000 Years of Longing. That was the other movie I thought of when I watched this one.
Oh, of like the George Miller movie.
Yeah, it's like the history of this character who has seemingly lived this infinite life, and all of these stories of, and because what I do like about this movie is the
wasn't trying to
characters
compare
feel
them,
like
but-
they feel like gods. That's one of the things I liked about it. They
Yeah,
feel
it
like
feels like-
mythological figures, which I
It's
thought
like
was cool.
superheroes. Like they're they're the most important.
Yeah, it was like
figures ever.
one was, if any, it kind of reminded me of Shazam, Fury of the Gods.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's like a big deal. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it reminded me of Suicide Squad. and all that stuff. No, but if I could look, there's a reason that I don't feel too bad about this movie or this review kind of going the way it did, and that's because it'll bring me to my final thought. Is this the least seen movie we have ever reviewed?
It might be the most least seen thing we've ever seen, because of the fact that it's not anywhere to be found. You know what I mean? There's not a lot. You know,
It hasn't
I mean,
been
you have this
restored.
cut,
It hasn't been
restored. The cut that you saw is not that great. The cut that I saw is not that great in terms of quality, visual eye quality. So it's a lot to take in. I think the performances are fine. Like, the actors aren't really anything. There's nothing really there in terms of like those performances that really like jump out like his other films either. They all feel like they're doing their friend a favor to try to save his butt.
Oh, I don't know about that. I think when they made this movie, they were like, here's a big blockbuster movie we're going to make.
Yeah,
And
maybe
then
so.
It wasn't that. I don't know. Least seen movie we've ever done. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
There you go. I like it.
Well,
though. Go watch it.
Jay likes it. I think that again, execution on the paper, it made a heck of a lot more sense. But really, honestly, the film as a whole was just not the greatest thing I've seen, and I really was devoid of.
It's my least favorite of his movies so far.
I was devoid of his voice and everything that goes along with it. But yeah, just a big kind of disappointment for me. One of the first big disappointments that we've had in quite some time doing a movie series, that's for sure. But I know that JD and Brendan will probably see it. They'll give thoughts on Letterboxd. Maybe they'll give some thoughts at another time, and we'll dive into it even more. But yeah, unfortunately, a little bit of a shorter episode this week. Not much to really dive into. We've dived into also
other than the April movie schedule.
Yeah, the April movie schedule.
Annapurna.
Maleficent, that was mentioned 600 times.
A lot of Maleficent.
A lot of Maleficent. But I will say also this too. We talked a lot about the production and the struggles of this film and what it meant.
The Chungking Express episode.
Exactly. So a little bit shorter this week, but next week it'll be back to probably a longer episode because it's more of a Wong Kar-wai film with Fallen Angels next week. So with that, that's going to do it for this week's review. If you can rate, review, and subscribe on YouTube and drop in your comments below. Can't wait to see some of the comments in this review. While you're on iTunes, or while you're listening to it via podcast, you can get it on iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify, all those great places. We're also on Geekcast Radio and the Lamb Podcast Network. InSessionFilm.com is where you can find stuff about our store, as well as our app. All that stuff's there on the website, as well as also Patreon.com/InSessionFilm. You can find all the information there on how you can support this great show. Jay, any final thoughts before we wrap this one up?
3.5 stars.
Oh, for this film.
Yes.
Okay. 2 stars.
Wow.
Me. Yeah. Got to be better.
That's a Maleficent opinion, my opinion.
Mistress
That's a
of
real
Evil.
Maleficent move by you.
I guess I'm the mistress of evil at this point.
I guess so.
So, and with that, thank you guys so much for listening. We'll see you all next time.
3.5 stars.
2, baby.